it's clear that as we go through, as public servants, as we go through our daily lives, our system of, unfortunately, our political system, it's a 4 or 5 year cycle, as the case might be. Do you think that we will reach a stage of maturity within our system to prevent this kind of professional hurt amongst our public sector leaders, and to ensure that we have this kind of a fearless advice, loyal execution, which is really the mantra of effective public sector administration and governance?
Interesting question. And in fact, if you remember when you asked me the question earlier around what were some of the findings, what were some of the conclusions, and I indicated to you the fact that I was able to conclude why it happened. And interestingly enough, in answering the question why it happened, that question is really around what is the cause, what caused it. And politics, party politics, was identified in the research as the #1 cause for professional hurt. But even as it was so identified, the rest of the data helped us to appreciate just how important forging relationships, managing relationships across the public service, just how critical it is to avoid professional hurt, or the lack thereof of properly managing it, how it could possibly contribute, So relationships across the administrative realm, the administrators with the political directorate cannot be underestimated. The whole matter of communication, which of course is what oftentimes trips us up when it comes to managing relationships. How do you communicate? How do you communicate with a level of diplomacy, but at the same time communicate to manage difficult communication? So it takes me back again in answering your question of the whole need for leadership development, and leadership development that is artfully, I'm using the word artfully, designed, developed, and delivered to take these and other things into consideration, to manage the relationship, to manage the administrative political divide, because I could only conclude that much of what resulted in professional hurt is just a matter of, as I said before, the system, but more importantly too, relationships, and how it is that we manage relationships, how it is that we communicate. So it's quite systemic.
Yeah.
And the need there for policies that will guide the conduct of all, including the political directorate.
So going back to the discussion about how persons can actually deal with professional hurt, what advice would you provide someone who is listening right now, who can actually relate to this topic and is recognizing that they're actually going through the phenomenon of professional hurt?
Okay. Well, I'd want to say to such individuals, and I'm going to look straight into the camera for this, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Having had that experience, or if you are going through the experience, it's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, there are so many individuals I'm getting to appreciate even after the research that have gone through the experience. And I'll just quickly refer to something that I shared with Ron earlier. Please remember that as personal as the experience is, it is part of a system that is larger than you, the individual, as much as the pain that you're feeling is deep, but is really part of a system that is larger than you. I'd also want to say that as deeply painful as it is, it can be overcome. And I'd want to add as well that there's a lot of learning and growth that this challenging experience, once you stay with it, with the requisite support, can help you to leverage. But in the process of it, please do not neglect your continued development as a leader. Seize every opportunity to continue your development. And do not overlook for a minute the support of others, family members, your colleagues, etc. Reach out to those too who have had the experience and see how is it that they navigated their way, what it is that you could possibly take from their experiences to help you navigate the process. Want to assure you as well that at this point in time, I'm also continuing to look at how is it that we can craft leadership development interventions that can support you even as you are going through the painful situation. Even as we also look at how we are going to be crafting leadership development interventions to help leaders not to create professional hurt. So you're only going to be stronger and a better leader at the end of the process is what I would want to leave with you. And I say that on the basis of the research and the feedback that I got from the 20 leaders who had the experience or who shared their experience. Because indeed, I've come to appreciate that there are just so many public sector leaders who have had this encounter. Yes, you're not alone.
And finally, Dr. Brown, how can I, as a CLP alumnus and also as a leader in my own right within the public service, assist those who are actually going through professional hurt? You have Alcoholics Anonymous, you have different support groups. Do you envisage that we'll have something like that for this, which to me is a very, very crucial subject matter that deserves quite a bit of attention? How can I, as a regular person within the public service, support those who are going through this kind of?
Right. I think it would be useful if you haven't already done so, which I think you have. Spend a little time to look at the research that I've done and see some of the ideas that were shared there by the 20 public sector leaders who were willing to participate in the process, that indicated some of the things that they did in order to navigate their way. And so you could have those to share with individuals that you encounter. I'd also want to suggest that you continue to encourage them to pay attention to their development as leaders. You know the value that you leverage having participated in the Caribbean Leadership Project in the LDP program, and some of the things that you learned from that program that you have been utilizing when you have come across difficult situations. Could identify some of those, share some of those with them that they could begin to utilize if they haven't already done so as they continue to pursue their own leadership development interventions. I would also want to ask for your support as I continue to look at how is it that we can design and develop leadership development interventions to support individuals. I'd want to ask you to, test out some of these, and if you know of persons who have had the experience, encourage them, when we get to that stage where we want participants to pilot the intervention with, to encourage them to do just that. But I think most fundamentally is to let your own leadership be an example that does not facilitate professional hurt, but an example that causes and support others to be powerful, to be great, to be the best public sector leaders that they can be. You know, for me, that would be one of the strongest influence that you could possibly have. Because what it would also be showing also is the power of leadership development to mitigate this ill. You know, with all of the competencies that you were able to develop through the LDP, you know, put it to use, as I have no doubt you have been doing based on what I've been hearing, but continue to do that and to have public sector leaders, those in the stream and those who are aspiring to those roles, to see your life, to see your leadership practice reflects all what is good and great about public sector leadership, and having the right tools and having the right competencies to do that. So that would be my take. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Brown. It has been most enlightening.
But before you go though, I just want to do one thing. I really wouldn't be able to have had this conversation with you today hadn't it not been for the willingness of those 20 public sector leaders from across the region who took the time to share their stories with me. There's no question, it was very painful for them to do. It was risky for them to do, but they trust me and they trusted the process. And I just want to say thank you so very much. Thank you for making the personal sacrifice to lead the change for better public sector leadership. Thank you. Ron, sorry to have hijacked your conclusion.
Not at all, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much.
But I had to say that.
It has been a most enlightening conversation. Dr. Brown clearly has demonstrated a commitment to elevating and empowering the value of human resources and building the human resource capacity within the public sector in the Caribbean in pursuit of effective good governance for the development of Caribbean societies and of course the Caribbean as a whole. So please check our other videos produced by the Caribbean Leadership Project on our YouTube channel, and thank you for joining us.